Jack Miller wiped the sweat from his brow as he floated in the zero-gravity repair bay of Miller's Fix-It station. The orbital facility hung silently in space, with Jupiter's massive form filling the viewing port behind it. 10 years had passed since humanity's first contact with alien life, and Jack still couldn't believe how much his life had changed. "Dad, the power coupling is stabilized," called Olivia from the other side of the damaged shuttle. Jack's daughter had followed him into the family business, showing even more natural talent with machines than he had. "Good work, Liv. Let's wrap this up and get ready for the supply freighter coming in from Mars," Jack replied, securing his magnetic tool belt. Just as they were finishing, Paul Garcia, their communications specialist and former NASA engineer, burst into the repair bay. His eyes were wide with excitement. "Jack, we just got a distress call." "You're not going to believe this," Paul said, his voice rising with each word. "It's a Centauri coalition vessel. Their quantum engine failed, and they're drifting into dangerous radiation belts. They're asking for emergency assistance." Jack's heart raced. In the 2 years since they'd opened their repair station at Jupiter's edge, they'd only serviced human vessels. The Centauri coalition was one of the more powerful alien alliances in this sector of the galaxy. Their technology was said to be centuries beyond Earth's. "Did they contact the wrong station?" Jack asked. "They must have repair ships of their own nearby." Paul shook his head. "They said their nearest support vessel is 3 days out. They've got less than 6 hours before radiation damages their life support systems." Jack looked at his small team. Just 8 humans running a modest repair operation in the outer solar system. "Well," he said with a shrug, "I guess we're about to find out if alien ships break down the same way ours do." 4 hours later, the Centauri vessel docked with Miller's Fix-It. The ship was beautiful, sleek in silver with glowing blue lines, running along its hull. It was roughly the size of an Earth cargo ship, but clearly built for speed. When the airlock opened, 3 aliens stepped through. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with blue-gray skin and large almond-shaped eyes. The one in front wore an ornate collar that translated his speech into English. "I am Captain Zix Vorn of the Centauri Coalition vessel Starlight Wanderer," the alien said, his voice sounding metallic through the translator. "We are grateful for your response to our distress call, though I must express doubt that your facility can address our needs." Jack extended his hand, then awkwardly pulled it back when he realized the alien might not understand the gesture. "Jack Miller. This is my station. Tell me what's wrong with your ship and we'll see what we can do." The captain tilted his head. "Our quantum propulsion system has suffered a cascade failure in the temporal alignment matrix. Without proper realignment, the engine could destabilize further." "Mind if we take a look?" Jack asked. The captain hesitated before nodding. "You may examine it, but I warn you, our technology is likely beyond your understanding. We only sought your help to stabilize our position until proper assistance arrives." As they entered the alien engine room, Jack whistled. The quantum drive was unlike anything he'd ever seen, a sphere of swirling energy contained within crystalline structures. But Jack had been fixing things his whole life, starting with his dad's auto shop back in Detroit. He'd learned long ago that all machines, no matter how complex, followed certain rules. "Olivia, what do you see?" Jack asked his daughter, who was already circling the engine with a handheld scanner they used for human vessels. "The containment field is fluctuating," she said, pointing to a pulsing section of the sphere. "And these crystal structures, they're vibrating at different frequencies. They should be synchronized, right?" The alien engineer who had accompanied them made a surprised sound. "Yes, that is correct. How did you determine this?" Jack smiled. "My daughter has good eyes and better instincts. Now can you show us your diagnostics?" The aliens reluctantly displayed their system readouts on a holographic screen. Despite the advanced technology, Jack recognized the problem immediately. It wasn't much different from when a car's timing belt went bad. Parts that should move together were out of sync. "We can fix this," Jack said confidently. "Impossible," replied the alien engineer. "The quantum alignment requires specialized equipment that your species has not yet developed." "Maybe," Paul chimed in, studying the readouts. But the principles are similar to our own fusion containment systems. We might not have the exact tools, but we can improvise. Over the next 3 hours, Jack's team worked frantically. Olivia identified that the crystal structures needed recalibration at the molecular level. Paul discovered that certain frequencies from their ultrasonic welding equipment could influence the crystal alignment. Jack himself realized that a modification to their radiation shielding could strengthen the quantum containment field. The aliens watched in a mixture of disbelief and growing respect as the humans used seemingly primitive tools in ways their manufacturers never intended. When one approach failed, the team quickly tried another. They used materials from their own supplies, modified tools on the spot, and relied on Jack's lifetime of mechanical intuition. "This shouldn't work," Captain Zixavorn said as he observed Jack using a modified mining laser to carefully adjust the crystal structures. "But it is working," Olivia pointed out as the engine's pulsing glow stabilized. 5 hours after they began, Jack's team stepped back from the quantum drive. The swirling energy sphere now glowed a steady blue, and all diagnostic readings showed normal operation. "Not only did we fix it," Paul said proudly, "but according to these readings, the efficiency is up 12% from your baseline." The alien captain stood in stunned silence before finally speaking. "In 300 years of space travel, I have never seen such unorthodox repair methods, yet I cannot argue with the results." Word spread quickly through subspace communications. Within days, another alien vessel, this one from the Proxima Trading Guild, arrived with drive problems they claimed their own engineers couldn't solve. Then came a diplomatic shuttle from the Rigelian Consensus with life support failures. By the end of the month, Jack had serviced 5 alien vessels, each leaving with their systems not just repaired but improved. 6 weeks after fixing the Centauri ship, Jack received an official communication from the Galactic Council, the loose federation of spacefaring species that humanity had only recently joined. They requested permission to add Miller's Fix-It to the official emergency repair registry, the first human facility ever listed. As Jack shared the news with his team, a new ship appeared on their scanners, limping toward their station with obvious damage to its hull. "Looks like we're just getting started," Jack said with a smile. "Let's show the galaxy what human mechanics can really do." 2 years had passed since Jack Miller's repair station first fixed the Centauri Coalition ship. In that time, the human repair business had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as one small station near Jupiter had expanded to a network of 7 facilities throughout the solar system. The flagship station now orbited Saturn, its rings providing a stunning backdrop to the bustling repair hub. Susan Wright stood in the main observation deck of Saturn Salvage, the largest of the human repair stations. She watched as a massive ship from the Proxima Imperium slowed its approach. The vessel was at least 3 times larger than any human craft and glowed with a faint purple light. Susan checked her tablet one more time, reviewing the distress call they had received 6 hours earlier. "Temporal stabilizer malfunction," she muttered to herself. "Never worked on one of those before." Susan had been a military helicopter mechanic before first contact changed everything. Her hands were rough from years of hard work, and her reddish-brown hair was kept short for convenience. What made Susan special was her uncanny ability to diagnose mechanical problems by sound and touch alone. Where others relied on computer diagnostics, Susan could place her hand on a troubled engine and feel exactly what was wrong. "They're requesting you specifically," said Alan Diaz, the station manager. He was a thin man with kind eyes who handled all the scheduling and client relations. "The Proximans heard about how you fixed that Arcturian cooling system last month." Susan nodded, grabbing her custom tool belt. "Tell them I'll meet them in Bay 4. When the Proxima ship docked, 6 aliens emerged through the airlock. They stood about human height but had gray skin with slight ridges along their foreheads. The one in front wore an elaborate uniform covered in what looked like digital readouts and small blinking lights. "I am Chief Scientist Krellmore," the alien said through its translator device. "We understand this facility employs the human called Susan Wright." Susan stepped forward. "That's me." I hear you have trouble with your temporal stabilizer. Krellmore looked down at Susan, his expression unreadable, but his tone dismissive. Yes, though I doubt your primitive technology will be adequate. We only stopped here because our main engineering facility is 14 light years away. Well, let's take a look anyway, Susan replied with a smile. She had grown used to this reaction. Advanced aliens always doubted human abilities at first. The Proximan ship interior was immaculate, with gleaming white surfaces and holographic displays floating everywhere. The engine room itself was enormous, with a central column of swirling energy reaching from floor to ceiling. Around it, robotic arms and tiny flying drones moved constantly, monitoring and adjusting various components. This is our Mark 7 temporal stabilizer, explained Krellmore. It prevents time dilation effects during faster-than-light travel. Without it, our journeys would take subjectively longer for the crew than for the rest of the universe. Susan nodded, though she only partially understood the science. And what's the problem? The stabilizer is experiencing random fluctuations. Our diagnostic AI cannot identify the cause, and our nanobots cannot find anything to repair. Krellmore gestured to a wall of incomprehensible data. We have run 27 different analyses without success. Susan approached the central column. Do you mind if I touch it? The alien engineers exchanged surprised looks. Touch it? Why would you need to touch it? It's just how I work, Susan explained. Krellmore seemed confused but nodded his permission. Susan placed her hand on the outer casing of the temporal stabilizer. She closed her eyes and felt the subtle vibrations running through the machine. After a full minute of silence, she opened her eyes. There's a fracture, she said confidently. Very small, probably microscopic. It's in the housing around the lower third of the central core. The Proxima engineers stared at her in disbelief. Impossible, one said. Our sensors would have detected any structural damage. Susan shrugged. Maybe your sensors aren't looking for the right thing. Can you turn off those maintenance drones? Their movement is creating interference. Reluctantly, Krellmore ordered the drones to power down. Susan then pulled out a simple stethoscope from her tool belt, an ancient human medical device. You're going to diagnose a temporal stabilizer with that? Asked Krellmore, not bothering to hide his disdain. Susan ignored him and placed the stethoscope against different points on the lower section of the device. After several minutes, she pointed to a specific spot on the casing. The fracture is here. It's causing a resonance disruption that your sensors interpreted as a power fluctuation. Krellmore seemed unconvinced but ordered his team to examine the area Susan had identified. They used a molecular scanner that projected a three-dimensional image of the casing structure. After increasing the magnification to its maximum level, a tiny assistant engineer gasped. She's right. There's a fracture in the time dilation. Housing. It's only 10 molecules wide, too small for our standard scans to detect. The room fell silent as all the alien engineers turned to look at Susan. She didn't gloat, instead asking, Do you have materials to seal a fracture that small? Yes, Krellmore admitted, his tone now respectful. But how did you find it? You used a primitive acoustic device and your hand. Susan smiled. Humans still fix things by hand. We keep a direct connection to our machines. Sometimes you need to feel a problem to understand it. Over the next 3 hours, Susan worked alongside the Proxima engineers to repair the fracture. While they used advanced nanobots guided by computer models, Susan contributed by identifying exactly where the repair needed to be strongest, based on the vibration patterns she could feel. When they finished, Krellmore ran a full diagnostic. The temporal stabilizer was now functioning perfectly, better than before according to their readings. I must admit my initial assessment of your capabilities was incorrect, Krellmore said formally. The Proxima Imperium has relied entirely on automated repairs for over 4 centuries. Our engineers are trained to program repair systems, not to perform repairs themselves. You've lost the human touch, Susan said without judgment. Yes, it appears we have, the alien agreed. And it seems that touch has value we did not anticipate. Word traveled quickly through subspace communications. Within a month, 3 more ships from the Proxima Imperium arrived at human repair stations throughout the solar system. Each time, the aliens specifically requested human technicians rather than sending their problems to the automated repair facilities of their own kind. 6 months after Susan's repair of the temporal stabilizer, the first alien engineers began, arriving at Earth stations not for repairs but for training. They wanted to learn this human touch that their civilizations had long ago abandoned in favor of automation. As Susan prepared to teach her first class of alien students, a mix of species from across the galaxy, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humanity, the newcomers to galactic society, were now the teachers of the most advanced species in the universe. Not because humans had the best technology, but because they had never lost their connection to it. 5 years had passed since the first alien vessel limped into Jack Miller's repair station. Humanity's reputation as the galaxy's best fixers had grown beyond what anyone could have imagined. Human repair teams were no longer confined to the solar system. They now traveled the stars, bringing their unique skills wherever they were needed. Frank Delgado stood on the bridge of the Helping Hand, a retrofitted alien cruiser that served as his mobile repair unit. The ship had once belonged to the Orion Combine before they sold it to humanity at a steep discount. Now it housed Frank's team of 12 human engineers and technicians who called themselves Frontier Fixes. Frank was a stocky man with dark hair and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. Before joining the space program, he had worked on oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico, learning to repair complex machinery with limited resources and under dangerous conditions. Those skills had proven surprisingly valuable in deep space. "Captain, we're receiving a distress call," said Megan Young, their communications specialist. Her fingers danced across the holographic controls. "It's coming from a Draconian generation ship. They report critical failure in their life support systems." Frank frowned. The Draconians were one of the oldest spacefaring species in the galaxy. Their generation ships carried entire populations across vast distances, some journeys lasting centuries. If life support was failing on such a vessel, thousands of lives could be at risk. "How far?" he asked. "About 6 hours at maximum speed," Megan replied. "Set course immediately," Frank ordered, "and tell the team to prepare for a major repair operation." The Helping Hand jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving behind a brief flash of light. As they traveled, Frank gathered his team in the ship's main workshop. Maps and diagrams of the Draconian vessel were displayed on large screens. "This is the Eternal Journey," Frank explained, pointing to the massive cylindrical ship in the image. "It's been traveling for over 300 years and carries 50,000 Draconians. According to their message, they collided with an uncharted gravitational anomaly that damaged their main reactor." Linda Kaufman, their chief engineer, studied the technical specifications with concern. "These systems are ancient by galactic standards. The parts they use haven't been manufactured for 700 years. Frank nodded grimly. "That's why they called us. No one else can improvise repairs for technology this old." When they arrived, the Draconian ship was an impressive sight despite its troubles. Nearly 2 miles long, it rotated slowly to create artificial gravity for its inhabitants. But even from a distance, they could see sections of the great vessel were dark, their lights extinguished as power failed. A small shuttle transported Frank and his team to the generation ship. They were met by Council Elder Kraz, the leader of the Draconian community. Draconians were tall, slender beings with scale-like skin that shimmered in green and gold patterns. Elder Kraz's scales had faded to a pale yellow with age. "We are grateful for your swift response," the elder said, bowing slightly. "Our engineers have tried everything, but the damage is beyond our ability to repair." Frank followed the elder through the ship. Many corridors were dark, illuminated only by emergency lighting. The air felt thin and stale. "Our collision with the anomaly caused a cascade failure in the main reactor," Elder Kraz explained. "Without it, our backup systems can only maintain life support for another 20 hours. When they reached the reactor room, Frank understood the gravity of the situation. The ancient power core was a marvel of engineering, but several key components had been physically warped by the gravitational forces they encountered. "The containment matrix is fractured," said Linda after a quick scan. And those regulator coils are completely twisted out of alignment. The Draconian chief engineer, a younger male named Sith, nodded in agreement. We cannot repair it. The original manufacturing techniques for these components have been lost to time. Even if we had the knowledge, we lack the facilities to create replacements. Frank walked slowly around the damaged reactor, examining it from every angle. Then, he turned to his team with a determined expression. We can fix this. Sith looked doubtful. How? These parts cannot be replaced. Then we won't replace them, Frank said simply. We'll adapt. Over the next 15 hours, the human repair team worked tirelessly. They faced a problem no automated system or repair manual could solve: how to fix 700-year-old technology with no replacement parts. Frank's team demonstrated humanity's greatest strength: innovation under pressure. They divided into smaller groups, each tackling a different aspect of the problem. Linda led one team in carefully unbending the regulator coils using controlled heat and magnetic fields. Another group, led by engineer Pedro Sanchez, found a way to seal the containment matrix fractures using a combination of materials from their own supplies and recycled elements from non-essential systems on the generation ship. Most impressively, Frank himself discovered that the waste processing system of the Draconian vessel produced a particular type of crystalline byproduct that, when properly treated, could substitute for the damaged power couplings in the reactor. This shouldn't work according to any engineering textbook, said Sith as he watched Frank carefully insert the modified waste crystals into the reactor's power transfer system. You're using our waste as a power component. Frank grinned as he made the final adjustments. Sometimes the best solution is the one nobody else would think to try. When the reactor finally hummed back to life, the lights throughout the generation ship gradually brightened. Cheers echoed through the corridors as the Draconians celebrated their salvation. Elder Kraz formally thanked the human team in a ceremony held in the ship's great central garden. For centuries, we believed the most advanced civilizations were those with the most sophisticated technology, the elder said. Now we understand that true advancement lies in adaptability and creative thought. As Frank's team prepared to depart, Sith approached him with an unusual request. Several of our younger engineers wish to join your next mission, he said. They want to learn the human way of solving problems. Frank smiled. We'd be happy to have them. Every species brings something valuable to the table. As the helping hand departed, leaving the Draconian generation ship safely continuing its journey, Frank thought about how far humanity had come. Just a few years ago, humans were the newcomers to galactic society, viewed with curiosity but little respect. Now their unique approach to engineering, what some aliens had begun calling human-style problem-solving, was being studied in academies across the galaxy. The ship's communication system chimed with 3 new distress calls from different sectors. Which one first? Asked Megan. Frank looked at his team, now energized rather than exhausted by their recent success. Whoever's in the most trouble, he replied. That's where we're needed most. 8 years after humanity's first contact with alien life, the human repair industry had evolved into a legitimate galactic enterprise. Earth now exported more repair specialists than any other product or service. Terran Technical Solutions had become the largest repair organization in the solar system, employing over 5,000 humans and 700 alien specialists from across the known galaxy. Lisa Patel stood in her office overlooking the main repair bay of the massive station orbiting Earth's moon. Through the panoramic window, she could see dozens of alien vessels in various stages of repair. Some were small and sleek, while others were enormous city-sized ships that dwarfed the station itself. Lisa had started as a robotics engineer before the arrival of aliens changed everything. Now she ran the most prestigious repair facility in human space. Her dark hair was streaked with silver, evidence of the stress and responsibility of her position, but her eyes remained sharp and observant. Director Patel, they've arrived, said her assistant, a young man named Kevin. Lisa nodded. Send them in. The doors slid open and 3 tall, thin aliens entered. Their skin was pale white, almost translucent, and they wore simple gray robes with intricate silver patterns. These were the archivists, one of the oldest and most mysterious species in the galaxy. They rarely interacted with other civilizations, preferring to observe and record rather than participate. "Welcome to Terran Technical Solutions," Lisa said, with a respectful bow. "I am Director Lisa Patel." The tallest archivist stepped forward. "I am Keeper Zahn. We have brought you a challenge worthy of humanity's unique skills." Without further explanation, the archivist led Lisa to the main viewing deck. There, floating just beyond the repair docks, was a ship unlike any Lisa had ever seen. It was roughly circular, with what appeared to be crystal spires rising from its surface. The material wasn't metal or any recognizable substance. It seemed to shift and change as Lisa watched, sometimes solid, sometimes almost liquid. "What am I looking at?" Lisa asked, unable to hide her amazement. "A derelict vessel of unknown origin," replied Keeper Zahn. "We discovered it drifting in the void between galaxies. Its age is incalculable, perhaps millions of years. We believe it contains technologies far beyond current galactic understanding." Lisa turned to the archivist with confusion. "And you brought it to us? There must be dozens of species with more advanced technology than humans." The archivist made a gesture that might have been the equivalent of a smile. "Advanced technology is not what this vessel requires. It needs something only humans seem to possess, the ability to understand that which they cannot explain." Over the next few days, Lisa assembled a special team of her best engineers. The ancient ship was moved to a secure repair bay, and work began to unravel its mysteries. Initial scans revealed little. Most of their sensors couldn't even penetrate the strange material of the hull. "We're going to have to go in blind," Lisa told her team. "No detailed scans, no blueprints, no user manuals. Just our eyes, our hands, and our instincts." The alien observers watched with fascination as the human team approached the vessel without the extensive preparation their own species would require. Where alien engineers would spend months creating theoretical models before touching unknown technology, humans were comfortable with hands-on experimentation. Aaron Cole, a former car mechanic from Ohio, was the first to discover a way inside the vessel. He found what appeared to be a doorway by simply running his hands along the hull until he felt a slight temperature difference. "It's cooler here," he explained to the others. "Air might be circulating behind this section." Inside, the ship was even stranger. Corridors seemed to shift and change direction when not observed directly. Rooms appeared and disappeared. The team quickly learned to mark their path with physical objects. Digital markers somehow moved or vanished. What truly set the human team apart was their approach to the ship's systems. Where alien engineers hesitated to interact with technology they couldn't theoretically model, humans worked backward from results, comfortable with practical experimentation. Lisa herself made the breakthrough that eventually powered up the ship's core systems. She noticed patterns in the way light played across certain crystal formations and recognized them as similar to logic gates in computer systems. "I think these crystal arrays are like processors," she explained to her team. "They're not electronic, they're processing light patterns and possibly quantum states. By replicating the light patterns they observed and introducing variations, the team gradually began to communicate with the ship's dormant systems. After 3 weeks of intensive work, they managed to activate what appeared to be the main control room. Holographic displays in an unknown language filled the air around them. Strange symbols flowed and changed, seemingly responding to their presence. "We can't read it, but we can see what happens when we interact with different controls," Lisa said. "Map every cause and effect. We don't need to understand the theory to learn how it works." The archivists observed all of this with growing amazement. One day, as Lisa was carefully documenting the effects of different control inputs, Keeper Zahn approached her. "You don't even understand the basic principles behind this vessel's operation," the archivist noted. "Yet you've made more progress in 3 weeks than our scientists did in a year of study." Lisa looked up from her work. "That's because we're comfortable with not knowing everything. Humans have always taken things apart to see how they work, even before we understood the science behind them. How can you interact with something you don't comprehend? Asked another archivist. We do it every day, Lisa replied with a smile. Most humans use technology they don't fully understand. How many people who use quantum computers truly understand quantum mechanics? We learn by doing, by trying, by making mistakes, and observing results. 2 months into the project, Lisa's team had managed to restore power to most of the ancient vessel's systems. They discovered it contained technology that defied known physics, artificial gravity that worked on principles different from any current method, power generation without apparent fuel, and most incredibly, what appeared to be a drive system capable of traveling between galaxies. Word spread throughout the galactic community. Representatives from dozens of species came to observe the humans' work. Many brought their own ancient artifacts and mysterious devices that their scientists had been unable to decipher or repair. After 6 months, Lisa's team had not only restored the ancient ship to working condition, but had begun to reverse engineer some of its simpler systems. The archivists formally recognized humanity as the galaxy's premier reverse engineering specialists. You possess an ability that more advanced species have lost, Keeper Zahn told Lisa during the recognition ceremony. You can work backward from results even without understanding underlying principles. You see patterns where others demand explanations. You try when others hesitate. As Lisa looked out at the now glowing ancient vessel and the growing collection of mysterious devices other species had brought for human examination, she realized humanity had found its niche in the galactic community. They weren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced, but they were the ones who could breathe new life into forgotten technologies that even their creators had ceased to understand. 10 years had passed since humanity joined the galactic community. What began as a simple repair station near Jupiter had transformed into a vast network of human-run facilities spanning 3 galactic arms. The sole certification for repair, operations had become the gold standard across known space. Human technicians commanded premium salaries on alien worlds, and engineering schools on Mars, Europa, and Titan now hosted students from hundreds of different species. Tim Barnes stood at the viewport of his ship, the Quick Fix, as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. A veteran repair specialist with over 4 decades of experience, Tim had started his career fixing farm equipment in rural Iowa long before aliens arrived on Earth. His weathered face and calloused hands told the story of a lifetime spent working with machines. At 62, he was one of the most respected human engineers in the galaxy. Beside him stood Karen Martinez, his protege and second-in-command. She was in her early 30s with keen eyes and quick hands. Karen had grown up in the post-contact world, learning alien technologies alongside human ones from an early age. There it is, Tim said, pointing at the massive structure floating in space before them. The Nexus Gateway. The Nexus was an artificial wormhole station, one of the galaxy's most important pieces of infrastructure. Unlike normal faster-than-light travel, which still took days or weeks to cross vast distances, the Nexus allowed instant travel between 37 star systems. Millions of beings and countless tons of cargo passed through it daily. The message said they're experiencing stability issues, Karen asked, studying the station. Even from a distance, she could see the wormhole at its center flickering unnaturally. Tim nodded grimly. The gateway is becoming unstable. If it collapses completely, all those connected star systems will be cut off from each other. It would destabilize the entire sector. Their ship docked at the station, where they were met by a delegation of aliens representing the Gateway Council. The lead representative was a Zinthari, a species known for their advanced mathematics and theoretical physics. The tall, 4-armed alien introduced himself as Director Vesh. "Thank you for responding so quickly," Vesh said, his translator conveying the urgency in his voice. "The situation is critical. Our stabilization mechanism is failing and we cannot determine why." "Who built this gateway?" Tim asked, as they walked briskly through the station. "It was a cooperative project between the 5 most technologically advanced species in this sector," Vesh explained. "The artificial wormhole generation was created by the Zinthari. The quantum stabilization matrix came from the Proxima Imperium. The Centauri Coalition provided the power systems. And when did the problem start? Karen asked. 3 days ago. The wormhole began to fluctuate. Minor at first, but growing worse by the hour. Our best scientists have been working non-stop, but they cannot identify the cause. They reached the central control room, where dozens of aliens worked frantically at various stations. Holographic displays showed the wormhole's deteriorating condition. The gateway will completely collapse in approximately 18 hours, another alien scientist informed them. Once that happens, it cannot be reopened without rebuilding the entire station, a project that would take years. Tim walked slowly around the control room, looking at each display in turn. He had never worked on a wormhole gateway before, but the principle was similar to other complex systems he had repaired. Every machine, no matter how advanced, followed certain physical rules. "Show me the original blueprints," he said. A three-dimensional schematic appeared in the air. Tim and Karen studied it carefully, noting how the different components worked together. "The problem is in the integration," Tim said finally. "Each species built their part perfectly, but they don't truly work together as a single system." Director Vesh seemed confused. "The parts all meet the specifications. The interfaces were precisely designed." "Meeting specifications isn't the same as working well together," Karen explained. "When different teams build different parts without understanding each other's methods, you get technical conflicts." Tim pointed to where the power systems connected to the stabilization matrix. "Your power fluctuations are microscopic, within acceptable parameters according to your specs, but they're happening at exactly the frequency that resonates with the stabilizer's natural harmonic." "How could you possibly know that?" asked one of the alien scientists. "Because I've seen it before," Tim replied. "Not with wormholes, but with fusion reactors, with quantum computers, with 100 other machines. Different parts fighting each other instead of working together." Over the next 12 hours, Tim and Karen worked alongside the alien engineers to implement their solution. It wasn't elegant or theoretically perfect, but it addressed the core problem. They created what Tim called a buffer system between the power supply and the stabilization matrix, essentially a mechanical filter that smoothed out the tiny power fluctuations before they could affect the wormhole stability. "This goes against standard design protocols," objected one of the Proximan engineers. "Power integration should be direct for maximum efficiency." "Sometimes what works best in theory fails in practice," Karen replied as she adjusted the buffer controls. "Humans learned that lesson through centuries of trial and error." As the buffer system came online, the wormhole's flickering slowly stabilized. Its glow strengthened, and the violent energy spikes diminished. Within 3 hours, the gateway had returned to normal operation. Director Vesh gathered the station's staff and the human team in the main observation deck overlooking the now stable wormhole. "You have saved not just this station, but the commerce and communication of 37 star systems," the director said formally. "Yet I must ask, how did you solve in hours a problem our best scientists couldn't resolve in days?" Tim smiled. "Most galactic civilizations evolved their technology in peaceful, gradual steps. Each innovation was carefully built on proven principles. But humanity's path was different. Our history is filled with competition, conflict, and crisis. We learned to make imperfect solutions work under impossible circumstances. Our greatest strength isn't our technology," Karen added. "It's our approach to problems. We're used to dealing with machines that don't work as they should, with parts that don't quite fit together, with systems that weren't designed to work with each other." The story of the Nexus Gateway rescue spread rapidly throughout galactic society. 3 months later, a formal treaty established the Interstellar Human Engineering Corps, a specialized organization with authority to inspect and maintain critical infrastructure throughout explored space. 1 year after the wormhole incident, a fleet of new repair vessels launched from Earth. Each ship bore the flags of Earth's nations alongside the symbols of 40 alien civilizations. As Tim watched the launch ceremony from his retirement home in Iowa, he reflected on humanity's unexpected journey to the stars. They had not conquered through military might. They had not dominated through advanced technology. Instead, humans had found their place in the galaxy by being what they had always been, The fixers, the problem solvers, the mechanics who could make things work when no one else could. The galaxy needed humanity not for what they knew, but for how they thought. Not for their precision, but for their improvisation. Not for their theory, but for their practice. And as ships throughout the galaxy continued to make their way to human repair stations, one thing became increasingly clear to all spacefaring species. When complex problems arose, when systems failed, when the impossible needed fixing, humans were the ones to call.